So last time we already discussed about the permutation, and the first, again, permutation talks about in permutation, we consider the order of the order matters. Okay. So there is ranking for permutation. Number one is linear permutation. The number of permutations of n distinct objects is n factorial. So the formula for linear permutation, if every object is distinct, is n factorial. Like we did in one of our examples about logic, how many words, um, how many arrangement or words we can have for the word logic. Okay, in the word logic class, every letter is unique. So we're going to use linear permutation, which is n factorial. And for logic, we have 5 letters. So we'll have 5 factorial. Okay, and get the value. Again, factorial, if we have, it's a product of counting numbers, right? So when we say counting numbers, we start with 1. That's why 0 factorial, that is equal to 1. And 1 factorial is also 1. 2 factorial, so it's the product of counting numbers up to the n. So here we will have 1 times 2, which is 2. 2 factorial means 1 times 2, which is equal to 2. 3 factorial means 1 times 2 times 3, which is equal to 6. 4 factorial means 1 times 2 times 3 times 4, which is equal to 24. And 5 factorial means 1 times 2 times 3 times 4 times 5 up to 5. And then 24 times 5 is 120. Okay, so we can have 120 different ways to arrange the word logic. Right? So in your cycle, there is factorial there, right? So you can use your calculator, but how are you going to do it manually? That's how we do it. So example, consider the letters A, B, C. Sorry. List down the possible permutations. So the letters A, B, C, each letter is unique. So we can use n factorial, which is 3 factorial. So we can have 6 arrangements, okay, or 6 possible permutation when we arrange the letters A, B, C. Okay, so like this one. So if we are going to list the possible permutation, we can have, so we have 3 factorial, which is equal to 6. ABC, BCA, CAB, BAC, ACB, and let's see. Do we have CBA? CBA. Okay, those are the possible permutation when we arrange the letters ABC, wherein we can easily determine how many possible permutation by using linear permutation. Next one is the second type is permutation of n elements taken R at a time. R is just a subset of n. So, hindi pwedeng mas malaki ang value ni R kay n kasi part lang siya ni A. So the number of permutation of n distinct objects taken r at a time is, so this is the formula, NPR is equal to n factorial over n minus r factorial. Okay, in your calculator, pwede nyo namang gamitin yan. It's just the same. The answer when you apply this formula is just the same. N factorial over n minus r factorial. Again, r came from n. So r should be less than the n. So it's like this will be the sample, r is the sample, n is the population. So let's have an example. 2 raffle tickets are drawn from 20 for the first and second prizes. Find the number of sample points in the sample space. We're going to consider the second type of permutation. Okay, permutation of n elements taken r at a time using this formula, n factorial over n minus r factorial, or just use your calculator, because we have here first and second, so it means there is an order, there is a ranking. So this is permutation, first and second prizes. Find the number of sample points in the sample space. So our n, obviously, we have 20 tickets. That is the total number of we have 20 tickets and we will just draw 2 raffle tickets for first and second prize. So from 20, we choose 2. So we will have 20 permutation 2. So try it in your calculator, or if you are going to use the formula, 20 permutation 2, which is n factorial over n minus r. Factorial. So, pwede din naman yan, class. Sa 20 factorial, it means 1 times 2 times 3 up to 20, right? 1 times 2 times 3 up to times 19 times 20. So, sa baba, pag sinimplify, 20 minus 2, it's 18 factorial. So, 1 to 18. So, pwede natin plus i-delete ang 1 to 18. 1 times 2 times 3 up to times 17 times 18. Kasi kapareho sa taas eh. We can cancel, right? We do cancellation sa multiplication. Ang matitira na lang ay 19 times 20, which is, that is the value of 20 permutation. What is the answer? Justy, what is the answer?
The casting.
Yes po, the cast.
380.
Okay, 380. That is 19 times 20 also, plus. Okay, so kung wala kayong calcu, pwede nyo munang isimplify. Halimbawa lang naman, walang calcu. Pwede pa rin naman. You make another way, so you could cancel yung mga ibang factors. Kasi same naman yan. And the operation is multiplication, and we have division, so we can use cancellation. Ang matitira, 19 times 20. Or if you have your cycle, just include this, 20 permutation. So we have 300 number of sample points in the sample space. Are we clear?
Yes po.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Next is the other type is circular permutation. From the word circle, okay, kung yung problem talks about or the shape is circle, in circular way, the number of permutations of n distinct objects arranged in a circle is n minus 1 factorial. Okay, so if you encounter a problem with circle, shape, you're going to use circular permutation. And there is an arrangement, of course, and order matters or apply n minus 1 factorials. So this is the easiest. In how many ways can 5 different plants planted in a circle. So there's a clue word, in a circle. You're going to arrange it in a circle. So we're going to use circular permutation. So our n here is 5. So 5 minus 1. So we will have 5 minus 1 factorial, which is 5 minus 1, that is 4 factorial. And what is 4 factorial? Get
24 po.
have 24 ways, okay, to arrange the plants in a circle. All right? Can you follow?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes po.
Next is the last one is permutation of things not all different. Kasi yung kanina, yung sa logic, lahat sila, every letter is unique. Okay, we're going to use n factorial, that is linear permutation. How about kung merong mga no, that's why permutation of things not all different. Given yung word, halimbawa, the word mathematics, may naulit ng mga letters doon, like M, P, right? So you're going to apply permutation of things not all different. Karaniwan ito lumalabas din to sa exam. How many ways can you arrange the word? So you need to check. Every letter unique, you use linear permutation. If things not all different or merong mga naulit, you're going to use this formula. You're going to apply permutation of things not all different. The number of different permutations of n objects of which n sub 1 are one kind, n sub 2 of second kind, up to n of k of a k kind is n factorial over n sub 1 factorial times n sub 2 factorial up to n sub k factorial. Okay? So sa calcu, merong mga calcu na hindi niya nire-rate pag walang parenthesis. So, kasi lalagyan nyo, open parenthesis n sub 1 factorial, close parenthesis, another parenthesis. Kasi hindi niya nag-error, nagmamate error pag wala. So, lagyan ng parenthesis. Though dito, pwede din naman kayo dito mag-cancel. You do cancellation kung wala kayong calcu or gusto nyong i-simplify muna yung given bago nyo kunin yung final answer. Okay, again, permutation of things not all different. If you encounter how many arrangement you can, kasi dito, bawal pa din ang maulit. Order matters. Pag permutation. Pag halimbawa sa mathematics, hindi na pwedeng nagamit mo na yung isang M sa unahan. May isang M ka na lang sa next. Kaya hindi naman sinabing meron kang dapat yung mabubuo ay may meaning. You just need to arrange it. Alright, so we will have n factorial over n sub 1 factorial times n sub 2 factorial up to n sub k factorial. Kung merong 1 factorial, halimbawa, yung E na word sa mathematics, isang beses lang. Okay lang naman kahit hindi mo na isulat ang 1 factorial. Kasi 1 factorial, that is just equal to 1, right? Pero kung gusto nyo ilagay, same lang naman yan. So let's try this example. How many distinct permutations can be made from the letters of the word Mississippi? Okay, so sa Mississippi, may mga naulit na letters. We're going to apply not all difference. Yung n factorial, of course, you need to, that is the numerator, n factorial over n sub 1 factorial times n sub 2 factorial up to n sub k factorial. N factorial, you count how many letters?
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
What is our n here?
2, 4, 6, 8. One, 2, 3, 4.
So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So our n is 11. So we'll have 11 factorial over ang m, 1 factorial. Kung gusto nyong ilagay, pwede naman. Pero pwede nang hindi na ilagay yung mga 1 factorial. Have 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 4 factorial. Ang s, 1, 2, 3, 4. 3 factorial. Make sure lang na walang makakalimutan dun sa mga maraming na ulit. So, tapos na tayo sa S. Sa I, tapos na din tayo. Sa P, we have 2 factorial. Then, simplify. Yes, Angelo, what is the answer?
Ma'am, ano po yun, ma'am? 4 factorial po yung sa S po.
Opo, 1, 2, 3. Yes, 5.
Po sa I din po, 4 factorial din po.
I see, yes. Kalimutan natin. So, parang hindi kayong magkamali. Pwede naman isulat nyo muna. M, ilan? I, ilan? S, ilan? P, ilan? So, again, ang N natin dito ay 11. M natin ay 1. I, 1, 2, 3, 4. S is 1, 2, 3, 4. P is 2. So, we'll have 1 factorial times, pwedeng hindi na isama si 1 factorial. 4 factorial times 4 factorial. And then 2 factorial. Sorry, okay? Thank you for that, Angelo. So, what is the answer? Yes, Daniel.
34,650 po.
What? 84,000?
34 po.
34,000.
650 po.
How about the other? So, I'm going to check 11 factorial. 4 times 4 factorial times 2 factorial. All right, 34,650 ways to arrange, okay, the word Mississippi. 34,650 ways. Imagine if you are going to arrange this word, gano'ng kadami. It's time consuming. So you can use counting techniques or permutation. How about the others? Do you have the same answer?
Yes po.
Yes po.
So let's continue. Next is combination. Combination, ang permutation, order matters. Combination, hindi naman. Order doesn't matter for combination. It's just a grouping of, or you just make arrangement wherein order doesn't matter. A combination is a selection. You just select group of objects. Okay? A combination is a selection of R objects from N without regard to order. Again, combination, order doesn't matter. Theorem says that the number of combinations of N distinct objects taken R at a time. So we only have one formula for combination. NCR is equal to N factorial over R factorial times N minus R factorial. Sa permutation ito, diba? N factorial over N minus R factorial. Sa NCR, sa combination, merong R factorial sa labas. Yun lang, pagkakaiba nila. Okay, sa linear permutation. Sa combination, there is R factorial additional sa denominator. Okay, so let's try example. Kindly read the problem. How about Michael?
An experimenter must select 3 animals from 10 available animals to be used as a control group. In how many ways can the control group be selected?
Okay, why this is an example of combination problem. There's a two-word select. And when we are talking about animals, hindi naman sinabi kung sino ang kailangang mauna sa kanila. Okay, basta sinabing kailangan niyang mamili. Okay, ng tatlong animals sa 10. It doesn't matter kung sino man ang mauna sa kanila. Okay, so it means it's a combination problem. Order doesn't matter. Okay? Unlike sa permutation, kailangan sino ang nauuna. Pag nagamit mo na siya sa una, hindi mo na pwedeng gamitin sa susunod. Okay? Meron tayong first, second, third, or merong ranking, may orders. Meron tayong president, vice president, mga ganyan, secretary. May ranking yan. Sa permutation yun papasok. But here, in this problem, we'll just select 3 animals from 10 animals. So, our R is 3. 3 came from 10. So, 10 pipili ka ng tatlo. So, our N is 10. Our R is 3. So, you just apply the formula. NCR. And combination of R. Our N is 10. Combination 3. Over N factorial. So, we have 10 factorial over R. 3 factorial times N minus R. 10 minus 3 factorial. So, pwede din dito mag-simplify class. Ang matitira dito, so 10 factorial will have 1 times 2 times 3 up to times 9 times 10. Sa baba, merong 3 factorial. So, 1 times 2 times 3. So, pwede natin itong i-cancel. Sa 10 minus 3 or sa 7 factorial na lang pala natin. So, magiging 7 factorial, which is 1 times 2 times 3 up to times 7. So, kung ika-cancel natin dito ang 1 to 7, matitira 8 times 9 times 10, right? Over. Dito naman, ang matitira na lang itong 6. 1 times 2 times 3. So, same lang ng value or just use your cycle. What is the answer? 10 combination 3. About yes, Gerald.
120 po, ma'am.
Alright, we have 120 days. Alright, so it's just the same when you apply this one for this. Is that clear? How about the others? Any question?
Not so far.
Not so far. Alright, so let's continue. Kindly read the problem. Queenie Grace.
5 people are in a club and we are going to be in the planning committee. How many different ways this committee?
Okay. So why do you think it's a combination problem? Anyone? Why it's a combination problem? Yes. Gerald.
Ma'am, try lang po. Because of the word po, ma'am, kasi po di ba po sinabi na 3 are going to be in the planning committee. Para po doon na po sila naka-assign. That's why po para po siyang the same word lang din po sa select po.
Alright. And when we make a group for committee, wala naman dong ranking eh. Wala dong arrangement. Bubuo ka lang ng committee, sino dito. Order doesn't matter kung sino ang mauna sa kanila. Basta kailangan mong bumuo ng group or ng committee for planning. Alright, so what is the answer? 1. So our N here is 5, our R is 3. Yes, May, Janelle.
10 ways po.
Okay, so we will have, so let's say 5 combination 3, we have 10 different ways. So makabuo tayo ng 10 different ways, okay, in 5 people. When we group them in 3, we have 10 different ways. Okay, clear?
Yes po.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, so we will proceed now to probability. Introduction to probability. So what do we mean by probability? So our focus or our objectives for this day is assign probabilities to events, explain how the law of large numbers relates to relative frequencies, apply basic rules of probability in everyday life, and explain the relationship between statistics and probability. So we encounter statements given in terms of probability all the time. An excited sports announcer claims that Sheila has a 90% chance of breaking the world record in the upcoming 100-yard dash. Henry figures that if he guesses on a true-false question, the probability of getting it right is 1/2. The right to health lobby claims the probability is 0.40 of getting an erroneous report from a medical laboratory at one low-cost health center. It is consequently lobbying for a federal agency to license and monitor all medical laboratories. So when we use probability in a statement, we're using a number between 0 and 1 to indicate the likelihood of an event. So in everyday lives, we encounter probability. Siguro hindi lang masyadong napapansin, but yes. Okay? So we have different ways in presenting probability. In percent, we're talking about chances. Okay? And of course, when you answer a true or false exam or question, there is a probability of getting it right 1/2 because you have 2 choices and one chance that one of them will be the correct answer. So you have 1/2. Even in medicine, in different fields, we encounter probability. Okay, and it says there that when we use probability in a statement, we're using number between 0 and 1. Okay, so it means the probability will not be less than, a negative number. It starts with 0 up to 1 only. Okay? Or in percent, that is 0% up to 100% when we write that in percent. Or in fraction, ito namang yung nasa pagitan naman nila can be also written in this form. All right, so let's continue. Kindly read the definition of probability. Let's have Mark, go ahead.
Probability is a numerical measure between 0 and 1 that describe the likelihood that an event will occur. Probability is closer to 1 indicate that the event is more likely to occur. Probabilities closer to 0 indicate that the event is likely to occur.
All right. So again, when we say probability, it's a numerical measure between 0 and 1, wherein if the probability is closer, mas malapit daw sa 1, it means it's more likely to occur. Mas mataas yung chance na lalabas siya. But if the probability is closer to 0, so it means it is less likely to occur. Mas maliit yung chance na yun ay lalabas. Okay? We denote probability of event A using P of A. Okay? And of course, if the probability of the given event or the probability of A is equal to 1, the event A is certain to occur. So this means that it is sure event if the probability of the given event is equal to 1. That is sure event. Okay? If we have a probability of A is equal to 0, the event A is certain not to occur. Okay? So this is an impossible event. So it is important to know what probability statements mean and how to determine probabilities of events, because probability is the language of inferential statistics. Kung napapansin nyo class, yung measures of central tendency, fractals, dispersion, yun ay under ng descriptive stats. Diba we have two nature of statistics. Descriptive stats if we are using if we want to describe the given data numerically, okay? Or we know that descriptive, if we can use the whole population. If you can use or if you cannot. Inferential statistics, if we cannot use the whole population, we will just get some sample that will represent the whole population, something like that. And inferential statistics, if we are just predicting, right? We are making inference or general conclusions out of our sample. Okay? Dito na papasok class ang probability. Okay? Kasi yung mga previous topics natin, that is under descriptive. So it is important to know what probability statements mean and how to determine probabilities of events, because probability is the language of inferential statistics. Pag hindi natin kayang gamitin yung entire population, we will just get some sample, right? Dito na papasok ang probability. We started with counting techniques because part ng formula ng probability, the denominator part, we need to know the entire or the sample space, yung kabuuan. Kailangan natin malaman ilan lahat yung possible ways dun sa given problem. At papasok dun kasi ang probability. Okay? Sa formula ng probability, which is the total number of outcomes or the total number of sample space. Okay, so let's have probability assignments. Number 1, kindly read. Let's have Angela Gale.
Probability assignment based on intuition incorporates past experience, judgment, or opinion to estimate the likelihood of an event.
Okay, so we have different ways or methods for us to say what would be the probability. We can have based on our intuition or based on our perception, okay, based on our past experience, okay, or judgment, or based on our opinion or perception, we can estimate the probability or the likelihood of an event. Okay, hindi naman laging gumagamit tayo ng formula to find the probability of an event. Okay, halimbawa sa weather forecast, hindi naman yun the probability na uulan, hindi naman nila yun actually na magpe-predict kung gaano kalaki yung probability or yung chances na uulan. Kasi weather yun eh, hindi naman tayo. Wala naman tayong power na exactly makuha. That is based on our experience or kasi ngayong araw na to, maulan. So most probably, the second day, may chance pa rin na umulan yung malakas. Depende kung yung ulan or yung bagyo ay mas mahaba yung stay niya sa lugar. Okay, that is based on our experience. Na gantong buwan, malakas talaga ang ulan. Or gantong buwan, summer. So, hindi masyadong maulan. So, that is based on our past experience or based on our intuition. Okay, so that is one. The second one, EJ, number 2. EJ. We can't hear you. Okay, so let's call other student. Let's have Marinelle.
A probability assignment based on relative frequency uses the formula probability of event is equal to relative frequency is equal to F over N, where F is the frequency of the event occurrence in a sample of N observations.
Okay, so like we did in the number 2 is based on relative frequency. So when we reviewed last time when we do FDT, one of the columns there is relative frequency, which is the frequency. Okay? Kung ilan yun sa each class, meron yung frequency, right? Over the total number of observations, which is the total number of the observations. Okay, that is we use based on relative frequency. Halimbawa yun sa colors, yung sa eminence. Ilan yung blue doon? Halimbawa, ang blue ay 3 and the total number is 20. 3 out of 20. You can use that, okay, based to get the probability of getting a blue in Eminem. 3 over 20. So again, we can represent probability in a fraction form or decimal or in percent form. So 3 over 20 or in fraction. So we want to know the probability of getting blue sa Eminem, which is we have 3 blues sub Eminem and the total number is 20. 3 over 20 in decimal, that is 0.15. Why we need to write it in decimal or in percent? For us to really see or imagine kung gaano ba kadami. Mas nai-imagine kasi ng estudyante, okay, ng students natin, pag naka-percent yan or naka-decimal yan. Kasi pag 3 over 20, gaano nga ba yung kaliit or laki? Okay? So always write your answer when you are encounter probability of an event in 3 ways. Okay? Para alam nila kung gaano ba kalaki. Only 15%. Okay? Out of 100. Mas may imagine mo. Right? So that is the second way. Okay? Based on relative frequency. Next, number 3. Kindly read. Let's have Mark Angelo Belmonte.
Number 3, a probability assignment based on equally likely outcomes uses the formula of probability of event is equal to number of outcomes favorable to event all over total number of outcomes.
Alright, like dun sa true or false item. So the number of outcomes there. So if you will want to know the probability na tama yung sagot mo sa true or false. Okay, so let's name it. Event A will be the event na tama. Okay, that you have the correct answer. the number of outcomes favorable or the number of favorable outcomes to the given event is 1. Isa lang ang tama dun. It's either true or false, but not both. And over the total number of outcomes, we have two choices, or we have two ways, true and false. So that is 1/2. Using the formula, number of favorable outcomes over the total number of outcomes, which is 1/2 or 0.5, or that is 50%. Okay? Are we clear, class? Let's continue.
Yes, so
Consider each of the following events and determine how the probability assigned. So again, we have different probability assignments that we can use. The first one is based on our intuition or past experience, judgment, or opinion. The second one is based on relative frequency using the formula RF is equal to F over N. And the last one is use the formula for probability of an event, which is the number of the variable outcomes over the total number of outcomes. So let's try. Consider each of the following events and determine how the probability is assigned. Number 1, who wants to try? Read and then try to answer. Yung kanina to. Let's have how about Grisel, May?
A sports announcer claims that Sheila has a 90% chance of breaking the world record in the 100-yard dash. Ano po?
What do you
Based
think?
on
What? Based on what?
equally likely outcomes po.
Equally likely outcomes. The third one, using the formula. Is it using the formula, class? Paano kaya nasabi ng sport announcer na si Sheila has a 90% chance? Anyone? Do we need to use formula here? Yes, Kia.
Based on intuition.
Based on intuition. Okay? Based sa experience o sa past experience nung player, ito kasi mga performance niya sa mga nakaraan niyang laban. So that is based on intuition. Based on the opinion ng sports announcer. So that is for the first one. It is likely the sports announcer used intuition based on Sheila's past performance. Is that clear? Hindi natin kailangan gumawa o gumamit ng formula dito sa letter A. Next. Okay, may sagot. Henry figures that, ito naman ay bigay ko din. If he guesses on a true-false question, the probability of getting it right is 0.50. So we use the third assignments. So the number of variable outcomes over the total number of outcomes, which is 1/2 or 0.50, or that is equal to 50%. In this case, there are two possible outcomes. Henry's answer is either correct or incorrect. Since Henry is guessing, we assume the outcomes are equally likely. Pwede kasi tama yung maging sagot niya or mali. There are equally likely outcomes. Yun lang. And only one is correct. So, using the formula, this will be the probability of an event that Henry will got the correct answer. Next. Ay, bakit puro may sagot? Yung sa letter C class, the right to health lobby claims that the probability of getting an erroneous medical laboratory report is 0.40. based on a random sample of 200 laboratory reports. So it means that the total number na ginamit niya ay 200, of which 80 were errors. From 200, may 80 doon na errors. Okay, so using the relative frequency 80 over 200, which is 0.40. So this is for based on relative frequency, the third problem. So we've seen three ways to assign probabilities based on intuition, relative frequency, and when outcomes are equally likely, we're using the formula. Which do we use? Most of the time, it depends on the information that is at hand or that can be passively obtained. Our choice of methods also depends on the particular problem. Laging nakadepende yun, class. Kahit saang problem naman yan sa math, depende anong method ang mas okay gamitin. Okay? In guided exercise 1, you will see three different situations yung kanina, and you will decide the best way to assign probabilities. Depende lagi sa sitwasyon yan. Okay? Remember, probabilities are numbers between 0 and 1. So don't assign probabilities outside this range. Hindi pwedeng may negative na answer. Hindi rin naman pwedeng lalabas or greater than 1 ang magiging sagot. Alright. So, determine a probability. Assign a probability to the indicated event on the basis of the information provided. Indicate the technique you use, intuition, relative frequency, or the formula for equally likely outcomes. Letter A. How about Luisa? Maybe. Basic. Yes, please.
A random sample of 500 students at Wisconsin College were surveyed, and it was determined that 375 were glasses or contact lenses. Estimate the probability that a Wisconsin College student selected at random were corrective lenses.
So what do you think? What technique that we are going to use in this problem? Is it based on the intuition or relative frequency, or based on using the formula for equally likely outcomes? Almost the same nung kanina. We have a random sample of 500 students. That is the total number. Okay? And from 500, we will have 375 were glasses or contact lenses. So what do you think? Based on sa 500 students class, merong 375 ang nagsasalamin or nagko-contact lenses. So what is the probability daw, okay, that the Hudson College student selected ay nagsusuot ng, so either nito, ng salamin o nagko-contact lens? Yes, Mary Joy Alcantara.
Ano po ma'am, pwede pong gamitin yung pang second po, bali 375 divided by 500 po.
Very good.
0.75 po. Tapos pag kukunin po yung percentage, 75% po sa kanila yung salamin or contact lenses po.
Very good. Using the relative frequency, so 300, let me annotate again. Probability that they are wearing lenses, corrective lenses, which is using relative frequency 375. Meron kasi dun sa 500, merong 375 ang nagsasalamin or nagko-contact lenses. So we have 300, that is the variable or the relative frequency, DF. Ilan dun sa 500 ang nagsasalamin? 375 over Ilan ang total number of students? We have 500. Pwedeng relative frequency, but this is about random sample, so we use RM, which is 0.75 or 3/4, sorry. When you simplify it, that is equal to 3/4 or 0.75 or 75%. Okay, so we're using relative frequency, F over N. Are we clear sa letter A?
Yes po, ma'am.
Okay, so let's continue. So the answer is already here. Letter B. Let's have, nandito ba si Marlon? Parang si Marlon hindi ko na i-encounter sa klase. Virtual. Marlon? Wala. Ayan, Reyes. Marlon. Mute. Please unmute. Marlon, can you hear me? Okay, ayaw. So, i-remove kita kasi hindi ka nagre-response. Hindi ko alam kung anong ginagawa mo dyan. How about Tiffany? Tiffany, can you hear me?
Yes po, ma'am.
Okay, kindly read and try to answer.
The Friends of the Library host a fundraising barbecue. George is one on the cleanup committee. There are 4 members on this committee, and they draw lots to see who will clean the grills. Assuming that each member is equally likely to be drawn, what is the probability that George will be assigned the grill cleaning job?
Okay. So what do you think is the technique that we are going to use in letter B? Did you understand the problem, Tiffany?
Medyo po, ma'am.
So what did you understand in the problem?
Ma'am, yung sa tingin ko po yung gagamitin po is yung base po sa equally likely outcome po.
All right. And you are asked to what? Get the probability.
Ano po, kung ano po yung probability na si George po yung ma-assign sa sa grill cleaning job.
All right. So what do you think is the probability that George will be assigned the grill cleaning job? Using yung third, sabi mo. Using equally likely. What I miss?
Ma'am, hindi ko po kasi nasulat yung formula po nun sa tatlo, kaya hindi ko po
Okay, yun sa pangatlo, the probability of A is equal to, the numerator is the number of variable outcomes over the total number of outcomes. So what is the number of variable outcomes? Ilan ba sila? We have 4 members. At isa doon ay si George. So, ilan ang number of available outcomes? Sa 4, isa doon si George.
1 po.
Okay, so we have 1 over, and the total number of observations or the total number of outcomes is what?
4 po.
Alright, so we have 1/4. 1/4, that is equal to what in decimal? 0. Tiffany?
0.25 po.
Okay, in percent, that is,
25% po, ma'am.
right, we have 25% that that is the probability that George will be assigned the grill cleaning job. 25%. Are we clear, class? Do you have the same answer?
Yes po.
Okay, so let's continue. So again, the answer is also included in the PowerPoint. Next, letter C. Let's have says Crizel May Trugo.
Joanna photographs whales for life adventure films on her next expedition. She is to film blue whales feeding. Based on her knowledge of the habits of blue whales, she is almost certain she will be successful. What specific number do you suppose she estimates for the probability of success?
So what technique that we are going to use in this problem?
Ano po, based on intuition po.
Alright, based on intuition. Kasi nandito na sa problem, based on her knowledge. Okay, so based on intuition. So what do you think is, what specific number do you suppose she estimates for the probability of success? Make a guess, kasi this is just based on her intuition. Malay natin kay Joanna kung gaano kalaki, right? Yung probability of success. So, since this is based on the intuition class, hirap naman mag-guess. Ikaw nang bahala magbigay. Pero kasi si Joanna, that's her parang interest. Okay? Photographs, whales, for sea life adventure films. Kumuha ng mga picture ng mga whales. Okay? Since Joanna is almost certain of success, she should make the probability close to 1. So, pwede tayong, this is based on her intuition. Mahirap. Dahil yun naman ang interest niya, pili ka lang ng probability, of course, closer to 1. Okay? We could say that the probability of success is above 0.90 but less than 1. Okay? Hindi naman sure event na kaya dapat less than 1 lang. From 90 pataas. Okay? 90%. Pero hindi lalagpas sa 100%. This probability assignment is based on intuition. Okay? So the technique of using the relative frequency of an event as the probability of that event is a common way of assigning probabilities and will be used a great deal in later chapters. The underlying assumption we make is that if events occurred a certain percentage of times in the past, they will occur about the same percentage of times in the future. Ito yung sa mga based on intuition. Kasi dahil nangyari na before, pwede mo siyang pagbasihan na ganun din yung mangyayari ngayon. Ganun din kalaki or kaligit yung probability or chance na lalabas. So in fact, this assumption can be strengthened to a very general statement called the law of large numbers. Pag dati, mas malaki yung chance na lumabas. Kasi sabi nga, history repeats itself eh. Ganun din yung, malaki din yung possibilities na mauulit siya ngayon, na ganun din. So we call that law of large numbers. In the long run, as the sample size increases, diba, this is probability is the language of inferential statistics. Siyempre, the more na mas marami kang pipiliin from your population, that will represent the entire population. Mas malaki yung chance na tama. The larger, the better. Okay? So sabi, in the long run, as the sample size increases and increases, the relative frequencies of outcomes get closer and closer to the theoretical or actual probability value. Okay? The more na mas malaki ang gagamitin mong sample, syempre, mas malaki din yung that is the better way na mas malaki yung, yung estimate po, you have a better estimate, okay, up from the actual, okay, or based on the theoretical probability value. That is law of large numbers. The law of large numbers is the reason such businesses as health insurance, automobile insurance, and gambling casinos can exist and make a profit. Pag mas marami kang perang tataya, mas malaki yung chance na ganun din ang balik. Ganun siya. Sa mga health insurance, ganun din. Okay? No matter how we compute probabilities, it is useful to know what outcomes are possible in a given setting. For instance, if you are going to decide the probability that Hardscrabble will win the Kentucky Derby, you need to know which other horses will be running. Kailangan mong alamin yung mga nandoon o yung part ng probability. To determine the possible outcomes for a given setting, we need to define a statistical experiment. Okay. Kindly read this part. Let's have. How about Marina?
The law of large numbers is the reason such businesses as health
No,
insurance.
This one, yung nasa yellow na box.
A statistical experiment or a statistical observation can be thought as any random activity that results in a definite outcome. An event is a collection of one or more outcomes of a statistical experiment or observation. A simple event is one particular outcome of a statistical experiment. The set of all simple events constitutes the sample space of an experiment.
Okay, so when we do an experiment, okay, or a statistical experiment, wherein there is a random activity, when we say random, there is no particular order. Inuulit mo siya ng inuulit. And you don't know, you know the outcome. That's why in a definite outcome, you know the outcome, pero hindi mo masasabi kung ano talaga ang lalabas. Like for example, when we toss a coin, okay, that is a random activity. That is a statistical experiment. Or it's a statistical observation. When you toss a coin, alam mo na ang mga possible na lalabas doon, it's either head or tail. Pero hindi natin masasabi kung ano ang lalabas kanila. But you can predict. It's either head or tail. It's a statistical experiment. Okay, next is an event. It's a collection of one or more outcomes of a statistical experiment or observation. When you toss a coin, it's an experiment, tossing a coin. An event there is the probability of getting ahead. That is one of the events. And the second one is, what is the probability of getting a tail? Okay, that is an event. Okay, when you toss a coin, because it says there a collection of one or more outcomes of a statistical experiment. Whatever your experiment, there is always an event. Okay, and next is a simple event, one particular outcome of a statistical experiment. Ano yung possible na lumabas doon when you toss a coin? That is simple event. And it is a subset. Okay, simple events are subset of the sample space. Sample space is like the universal set. Okay, and event is the subset o yung mga ano yung that is event A, event B, or set. Your universal set is your U. Set A, set B are the simple events. Okay, those are the subset. Okay, subset, when we say subset, dapat yung mga elements niya, di ba, ay nasa universal set. Okay, that is sample space. Sample space is the universal set. And we denote it using letter U or this one. Okay. we denote, by event, you can use any letter, any English letter. And for sample space, of course, we will have, for sample space, we have S or this one. Okay, so let's continue. Random experiments, sample spaces, and events. So again, let's define those statistical terms or probability terms. So we have, again, kindly read. Let's have DJ. Okay na ba yung ano mo? Headset mo? DJ? Is it mute? Okay. How about Asne, Pauline?
Random experiment is a process or procedure repeatable under basically the same condition, leading to well-defined outcomes. It is random because we can never tell in advance what the realization is going to be, even
if we can specify.
Even if we can specify what the possible outcomes are. Example, consider the process of tossing an ordinary coin. Once we can repeat the example, consider the process of tossing an ordinary coin. Once we can repeat the tossing of coin under basically the same environmental condition. This repetition is commonly called trial. This experiment has been considered as a classical example.
Okay. So para mas maintindihan what we mean by random experiment, what do we mean by trial and classical example? So commonly example is tossing a coin. When we toss a coin, that is random experiment because we have a process. We toss it. Okay? And we repeat when we toss a coin twice or thrice. Okay? Under basically the same condition. Wala kang ibang gagawin. When you toss a coin once, ganun pa din yung way mo in the second trial. For the third trial, same condition. Kaya wala kang babaghay rule when you toss a coin. And it is random because we can never tell in advance. Like I've said, we know what are the possible outcomes. It's either head or tail, but we cannot predict. We cannot say what will be the result. Okay, when you toss a coin. Right? So, when we say trial, that is the repetition of commonly called trial. First trial, lumabas head. Second trial, lumabas head again. And the third trial, pwedeng tail na siya. So, that is trial. Okay? The repetition. And this experiment has been considered as a classical example. Kaya laging ang example natin sa probability, tossing a coin, rolling a die. Right? Yan yung mga lagi. Tsaka yung sa when we given a deck of cards, yan yung mga lagi. Those are example of classical example. Okay, so these are some examples. The sex of unborn child is either a male or a female. Okay, a student will either pass or fail a subject, and a business will either profit or loss. So another example, recording the numbers of cars pulling up at the service station for gasoline per day. Next, an agriculturist may be interested. These are example of random experiment. Okay. Next is an agriculturist may be interested in the yield of a new variety of rice. All right. Kindly read the problem. Let's have, kapag hindi ko natatawag, James Kapasha.
Professor Guterres is making a final exam for a course in literature of the Southwest. He wants the last three questions to be of the true-false type. To guarantee that the answer do not follow his favorite pattern, he lists all possible true or false combination for three questions on slip of paper and then pick one at random from a hat.
Okay. So with that problem, did you understand the problem, class? So si Mr. Gutierrez daw ay gagawa ng final exam. Okay? Sa literature. And gusto niya, ayaw niyang masunod, I mean, yung may pattern. Kasi di ba ganun yun sa true or false. Halimbawa, 1 to 5, true, 6 to 10, false, o kaya alternate. Ayaw niya na magkaroon ng pattern. He wants the last three questions to be of the true-false type. And to guarantee that the answer do not follow his favorite patterns, at last three questions, he lists all possible true-false combination for three questions on slip of paper and then pick one at random from a hat. So what do you think are the outcomes in the given sample? If we have three choices, I mean three numbers na lang, and that three numbers is about true or false statement or question. So kung sa first question, so sabi, the first question is list the outcomes in the given sample space. So number one, kung sa first question, it's either true or false, right? Pwede tayong ang tawag dito, tree diagram. So sa second question, it's either true or false also. And next is, for the third question, it's either true or false. Para tong sa logic. Okay, or if you want, using the truth table. Kasi we have, diba, the formula is raised to n, which is, we have three questions, so we'll have 3 2 cube, which is 8. So we have 8 possible outcomes. Or apat na true, ganyan tayo gumawa ng truth table, apat na false. Then, dalawang true, dalawang false, dalawang true, dalawang false. And alternate. True, false, true, false, true, false, true, false. Or ito yan, no? True, 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 false, true, false, true, true, false, false. False, true, true, false, true, false, 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 true, false, false, false. So these are, sabi kasi these letter A, list the outcomes in the given sample space. So ito ang sample space natin. We have, so i-list nyo lang yan in a set. True, 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 false, true, false, true, false, 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 true, true, false, true, sorry, false, true, false, 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 true, and false, false. We have 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, we have, that's the total number of outcomes. Next, letter B. So this is letter A. Ang question, class, ay nasa PowerPoint. What is the probability that all 3 items will be false? What is the probability that the 3 items will be false? So let's use F na lang. Probability. Again, what is the probability that all 3 items, one of the event is getting 3 items will be false? Anyone? From our sample space, ilan dyan ang merong 3 daw ay false? Yes. Amular, Daniel.
1/8 po, ma'am.
Alright, so we have 1, 8, or that is in decimal, we have
1/125.
0.125. This is terminating, so we don't need to round up. Okay, this is terminating. 0.125 or 12.5%. Okay? And the last, what is the probability that exactly 2 items will be true? So this is 3F. Pero kasi kailangan we name an event using any letter. So F na lang. So how about, what is the probability that exactly 2 items will be true? Ano to that exactly 2 items. So ibig sabihin, merong dalawa na true. How about, yes, Kia?
3/8 po.
Okay, so we have 1, 2, exactly 2. So hindi to, is it included? Tatlong true?
Hindi
Pag
po.
sinabing exactly, so hindi. So we'll have 1, 2, 3. So we have 3 eighths. 3 eighths, Kia, that is equal to what?
0.375 po, or 37.5%.
Alright, 37.5%. Again, this is terminating decimal, so you don't need to round off the answer. Okay, so that is the answer. Question. Any question? Are we clear, class?
Yes po.
Okay, so the remaining, send ko na yung copy ng PowerPoint sa Google Classroom. This is for asynchronous. Anyway, meron namang guide. Pwede nyo gawing guide tong PowerPoint at meron din namang solution kung paano nyo siya gagawin. Alright? Kasi next week tayo ay asynchronous. And following week, 23. Hanggang December 23 class, may pasok pa kasi.